It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump in that gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on Konica Minolta's FY2024, which ended March of 2025. The numbers are terrible. I'm looking at Konica Minolta's financials. I'm thinking in my mind, let's go back in time. When was it better? I went to 2019. In 2019, Konica Minolta was just above the line, had a 1% operating profit. And then I looked at 2020. FY 2020 for Konica Minolta, operating profit loss over $100 million in dollars. FY 2021, operating profit loss over $100 million in dollars. 2022, operating profit loss over $600 million in dollars. FY 2023, Konica Minolta just above the line, about 2%. They blow up a bunch of balloons. They get all excited. Then they publish FY 2024 numbers. All the balloons get busted. Because here they are for FY 2024, minus 64 billion yen in loss, 438 million in dollars. There's something fundamentally wrong with Konica Minolta. Ladies and gentlemen, I put this graphic together. It's this big rock. Think of that rock as Konica Minolta. And think about some weight going on the tip of that rock, causing that rock to crack. And I believe that Konica Minolta's rock's going to crack and crush all their hopes and dreams. And the weight they're putting out there on the edge of that rock is a lack of stewardship regarding their profitability, is an unrealistic optimism, is an unrealistic belief in abilities. Sometimes I think that Konica Minolta executives go to their website and they read all these awards they paid for and they actually believe they're merit-based. Ladies and gentlemen, at Konica Minolta, what in the world's going on at that company? And I know that after today's episode, here in the U.S. anyway, there'll probably be some emergency press conference where all the media and analysts can get together with the leaders in Konica Minolta U.S. and they can tell you all that everything's great. They'll tell you that, hey, the financial struggles at Konica Minolta have nothing to do with digital workplace or professional print. We're doing great. Unrealistic optimism, unrealistic belief in abilities. Let's look at some numbers. Top line revenue was $7.7 billion. The operating profit loss of $438.2 million. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. Thinking about the stewardship around profitability, the discipline. Right before they published the FY24 financials, they had to publish this and say, hey, by the way, we made a mistake. We're going to lose more money than we told you. Remember that? I'm going through the presentation. I read this. During the audit for FY 2024, the independent auditor identified issue regarding the calculation, elimination of unrealized gains and consolidated adjustment, and 11.4 billion yen was recorded as a cost of sale. You got a cost you didn't account for, 78.1 million. Holy smokes, goes back to stewardship, responsibility. Y'all remember back in 2022 when Konica Minolta had the big meeting at their headquarters? Had the race car there. I think they had the race car there so the dealers, hey, look at this race car, don't look at our financials. Maybe they had that simulator there. Hey, dealers, get in that simulator, pretend you're a race car driver, look at that screen, don't look at the end of the day's race screen. Ladies and gentlemen, back in 2022 when you were at the headquarters looking at the race car, did Konica Minolta prepare you for the fact that FY 2022 they were going to lose $651.7 million in operating profit? Or did they share with you how everything was going to be fantastic? And the reason I'm asking you that question, ladies and gentlemen, is because Konica Minolta here in the United States is changing the dealer agreement, the dealer contract. And they're telling dealers, hey, this new contract that we want you to sign in June, we can cancel you in 90 days without cause. And then they say, oh, we would never do that. We would never do that. Ladies and gentlemen, what did they tell you in 2022 regarding their financial situation? What did they tell you in 2023 when everything was going great? They had a little bit of profit. Did they prepare you for 2024? So I'm not too sure that what Konica Minolta's leaders tell you is something you could take to the bank, because they sure as hell aren't taking profit to the bank, and that is a big problem, especially with an OEM that wants a dealer to sign a contract that they can cancel them in 90 days. Y'all remember Drupa? Remember Konica Minolta telling the whole world, we sold 200 plus show sales. Unbelievable. Drupa. I did an episode on this. I thought it was so stupid when they did it. I even said, what did you sell? Copies in the booth? Because when you look at the professional print for FY 2024, the operating profit loss is $90.4 million. Ladies and gentlemen, back August of 2024, the Konica Minolta, they had another one of them high-velocity dealer meetings. Did they tell you at that meeting what was going to happen in FY 2024 when the year ended? That they were going to have an operating profit loss in dollars of over $400 million? Did they tell you that at the meeting? Did they tell you at the meeting why they divested from Forza? Were there any dealers that were on Forza at that meeting? And what did they tell you? Oh, well, you got a new owner now. Ladies and gentlemen, unrealistic optimism, unrealistic belief in abilities. And quite honestly, are they being upfront and honest with you? Because I know they're going to tell you now that, the profit has nothing to do with the digital workplace and professional print. I mean, we're killing it in professional print, digital workplace. Ladies and gentlemen, who would believe anything they say regarding the forecast? Konica Minolta is forecasting for FY 2025 that they're going to do 48 billion yen. In order for Konica Minolta to hit 48 billion yen in FY 2025 in operating profit, they literally have to improve by 767.5 million in operating profit than they did in 2024. Do you really believe it's going to happen? I don't believe it's going to happen. So let's look at some numbers because, like I said, I'm sure they're going to tell you all that the print business, digital workplace, professional print is doing, we're killing it. We're knocking it out of the park. Konica's financials aren't really affecting that business. We're killing it. Let's look at some numbers. Digital workplace did 4.2 billion in FY 2024, and professional print did 1.9 billion, a total of 6.1 billion. Operating profit for digital workplace was 2%, $95.9 million. Unfortunately, the operating profit for professional print was a negative 90.4 million. So when you calculate it out, operating profit was 5.5 million on 6.1 billion in revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 0.09% in operating profit. That's something to be bragging about. That's a home run. Yeah, we're doing great in the print business at Konica Minolta. Are you? Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2022, Konica Minolta changed the way they present the financials. And they added this box called business contribution profit. And when they did that, I called, let me just say we're all adults. I called it bullshit. There's the bull, there's the poop, right? I said it doesn't matter what you call business contribution profit because we got to go to where the operating profit is. And I'm looking at this business contribution profit. I'm like, what the hell is this really? So I want to do a little research. So I go back to the year 2020 and 2021. And I look at how they present the financials. They show the revenue, they show the gross profit, they show the SG&A expense, and then the operating profit. That's the way they always do it, right? They did that in 2020, and by the way, the SG&A expense was 45.2% of revenue in 2020. In 2021, it was 44.4% of the revenue. In 2022, when they made the change and they added business contribution, the SG&A expense dropped to 39.5% of the revenue. In 2023, it was 41.3% of the revenue. In 2024, it's 39.6% of the revenue. So in my thinking, and I'm just a guy here from Missouri, maybe I don't know. But it just seems to me that they took away 5 to 6% in SG&A expenses, put it in some other bucket. Then they called it business contribution profit. Then they put the 5 to 6% back in as the cost, and guess what? We got an operating profit. What the hell? Let's look at professional print. This is a slide they show you. Of course, I put the bull there because I want to reiterate, I think business contribution profit is bull crap. I think we need to be focused on operating profit. I'll put my own slide together. For professional print, total revenue was 1.9 billion. Production print was 1.2 billion. Industrial print was 303.6 million. And marketing services was 439.2 million. In their forecast for FY 2025, Konica Minolta says, hey, we're going to be about 278.9 million less in revenue in the professional print space because they're getting rid of the marketing stuff, right? Some of that marketing stuff. But they also are doing something else in 2025. And I really can't even believe they're doing this. But it just goes to show you, in my opinion, Konica Minolta is trying to hide everything they can. And they think that if they can hide all this stuff, then they'll get better somehow, and then no one will be paying attention to them along their rocky road to getting better. But in 2025, they're going to lump all the revenue together. So they're not going to tell us what they did in their revenue for industrial print. They're not going to tell us what they did in production print. They're not going to tell us whatever's left of this marketing business. They're going to lump it all together. Maybe they're tired at the end of the day with Ray doing an episode and saying, Konica Minolta, why the hell are you even in industrial print? Because you don't do a lot of revenue in it. $303 million for a year is not a lot of money, right? So now no one will know how much they do. And then they're just going to call it a business contribution profit. Ladies and gentlemen, it's insanity. Insanity. Let's look at digital workplace. There's the slide they put together. Again, I got to put the bull there. There's the bull. There's the poop. Business contribution profit worthless. I got my own slide. Total revenue for digital workplace was $4.2 billion. And folks, at the end of the day, 2% operating profit, $95.9 million. But they're saying some things on this slide I find interesting. Well, we're not going to know the revenue of DW, DX, and Office. It's all going to be lumped together. So we won't know what they're doing with All Covered and all those assets they rolled up underneath All Covered and all that other stuff they're doing. It's all going to be mixed together, one big number. Yeah, that's a great way to manage things into profitability. But then I noticed they didn't say anything about DW, DX in the forecast. Are they going to dump All Covered altogether? Are they getting out of that business? Is that the big surprise? They projected a declining revenue of $317.9 million in digital workplace going into FY 2025. But again, I find it so amazing that Konica Minolta is trying to hide their numbers. And we see our friends over there at Xerox, and everybody's going under a lot of pressure. What do our friends at Xerox do? They told the whole investment community that, hey, we're going to start sharing, and they started sharing their first quarter. The numbers of our IT business, our managed services business, not only the revenue numbers, but the profitability numbers too, so that you can help us monitor and manage it. Because there's nothing better than managing something when the whole world's watching the numbers. In Konica Minolta's case, let's hide as many as we can, and then we have a really crappy year, which seems to be quite frequently. We can just tell everybody that everything's going great in print. There it is. Making the big change in the way we tell the world our numbers. Holy smokes. Ladies and gentlemen, Ifsimo Capital has an equity stake, about 6% in Konica Minolta. Ifsimo Capital, private equity group. They also have up to 23% now in Rico. I don't know what they're going to do with this, but I'm telling you right now, Ifsimo Capital, take control of this company before that thing just falls off that cliff and that thing does crush their hopes and dreams. Somebody needs to get in Konica Minolta and get them to get them held accountable to their financials. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a picture of a boat that should not float. It's done. It's over. I want to talk about unrealistic optimism as I close out this episode. Not all boats should float. And this unrealistic optimism in abilities, this absolute pandering nonsense in our industry is causing our industry issues. And you should all understand these issues that it's causing. It's a lack of accountability at all levels. The media, the analysts don't hold anybody accountable at the OEM level. You've seen a lot of things happen over the last year that should have been more accountability. This damn Konica Minolta contract is another one of those things. Because ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, a lack of stewardship regarding profitability, unrealistic optimism, and unrealistic beliefs and abilities will in fact crush your hopes and dreams. Remember this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. I'll see you all tomorrow.